meeting of the Southampton Village Planning Board to order. If I could have a motion to do so.
So moved.
Magic. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, indeed.
We will begin with the public hearings. First item on the agenda is Crease Property, 16 Windmill Lane.
For the applicant, David Gilmartin Jr., Farrell Fritz, 50 Station Road, Watermill, New York. As the board remembers, there are two issues that were outstanding. One was the health department. We provided health department guidance that we're not increasing the use or the wastewater flow, so we don't need a permit from the health department. And we did provide some detail on the drainage at the rear of the property. I think Kathy got that today. I talked to her before the meeting. She was satisfied, so I'd ask that you close the public hearing unless there's other public comment or questions, and we'll move forward.
Thank you. Kathy, could you just, for the record, point what you indicate the work session regarding the fact that this application is, because there's no change that's being made, in fact, there's a lessening of the density, that it doesn't require,
Yeah, the department has issued some guidance regarding this type of situation where there's been use that changes over time, and as long as the CO, what's listed on the CO, was greater than what is proposed at this time, there is no need to apply to the health department. So we have a copy of that standard in the file. And then the last outstanding item had to do with the drainage, being able to kind of formalize where the runoff would go. So that has been shown on this motion. So I would prefer that we can close the public hearing.
so you've received additional drainage, and you'll take that to the consultants at MPV, and we'll be looking at
Yeah,
that? Okay.
Nelson Pope Engineers will look at it and take care of it. So we'll have to complete seeker, and so then it'll be ready for a decision.
I'd like to ask if anybody would like to make any comment on this application from the public here tonight. No? Okay, in that event, may I have a motion to close?
We're closing or moving adjournment?
Closing the public hearing.
Closing. So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Second item on the agenda is Southampton Town Newspapers, 135 Windmill Lane.
Evening for the applicant, Gilbert G. Flanagan, 21 South Main Street, Southampton. This is a continuation of a public hearing on this application which started last month, and there were a few issues which the board and your consultants had asked us to address, many of which we raised at the work session. And just to summarize what those were, there was a concern about drainage as far as the access to the basement of the proposed new building is concerned. There was a concern that perhaps the way the leaching pools we had shown on the original application were located might have had an adverse effect on the large maple trees located near the property line, which it's in everyone's best interest to preserve. So we had the plan revised to locate those drainage structures underneath the access to the basement, moving them considerably further away from the maple trees. I submitted that material at the work session, and also a letter from Tim Rumpf, who has done the landscape work on this project, indicating that the proposed construction, including the driveway, will have no adverse impact on those trees. So I think we've addressed that issue. Another issue that you had asked us to address has to do with erosion control, particularly with regards to the additional parking spaces being located on the east side of the property, as approved by the Board of Appeals, and we'd submitted a revised map prepared by Squires and Holden that shows that information. You may also remember that there was a request at the original public hearing from Bill Hattrick, who's the president of the Cooper Hill Townhouse Association, to stake the four corners of the proposed building. That was done. I know that Bill Hattrick visited the site, walked it with Joe Lockheim, and apparently was satisfied with it. I had a telephone conversation with Bill toward the end of last week, and he indicated that he didn't have any remaining open issues himself as president of the association. And so I said, could I represent that? And he said he had no problem with that. So I don't even know if he's here. He probably isn't. But that was taken care of. You also received before the public hearing, or after the initial hearing, a letter from Mrs. Wyman, who owns one of the units that's relatively close to the proposed construction, and there were a number of issues raised in that letter. And I believe we've addressed most, if not all of them, and I'll just run through them quickly so that you can see what we've done in response to that letter. The first concern was whether or not this would be a warehouse. Now, I hasten to assure you that the basement storage that we're talking about is the same storage that's currently going on in the existing garage. There's to be no change in the use of that as storage. It's not a warehouse, it's strictly storage for materials and equipment for the Southampton Press. So there should be no doubt about that. The driveway will be used no more frequently, that access will be used no more frequently than the access to the existing garage. Be the same, basically the same activity, locating it below grade, and we actually think that might make it better because there won't be trucks idling and lights shining above grade adjacent to the property. This way, the activity will actually be below grade, so we think that that's actually a benefit. And there was a suggestion that we shift that driveway to the other side of the building, and in order to do that, we'd have to move the building closer to the townhouses. Number one, we don't think that would be better for them. Number two, that would require variance relief from the Board of Appeals, which they would, in my opinion, would not be inclined to grant. The next issue that Mrs. Wyman mentioned was the hours of operation of this building. Well, I think it would operate the way any office building normally does. They say the deliveries are the same deliveries that have been going on, and from what the press tells me, there have never been any complaints from the neighbors about the activity in and out of the existing garage. So I don't think we'd be inclined to stipulate limited hours. They're not going to be any different from what they have been historically. Another issue that a question that Mrs. Wyman raised was the color and materials of the building. Well, it's going to be a wood shingle building, which will be allowed to weather naturally, and it will have white painted trim, so I think that should be acceptable. As far as the lighting goes, I think the lighting cut we originally presented to you showed some lights next to the doorway accesses to the building. They're down directed only, and they would be activated only by motion, so they're not going to be on all night. They'll have motion sensors that will trigger them only. And I think those were pretty much all of the issues that Mrs. Wyman had. And I think that we've adequately addressed them. We agreed with a number of them and took them into account right away. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them, but I would hope that with what I've said and with what I submitted at the work session, we'd be able to close the public hearing on this.
Is there a representative from either Mr. Hattrick, Mrs. Wyman, or anybody else from the public who would like to comment on this application?
I'm assuming that Mrs. Wyman's questions have been answered. I'm waiting. Does she, as the attorney, heard from Mrs. Wyman and everything's acceptable?
I haven't heard back from her, but I did, when I initially got the letter from her, actually from Fred, I emailed Fred some initial comments. I sent him a copy of the revised drainage plan. I sent him a copy of Tim Rump's letter about the maple trees, and I've explained the other issues to him, including the siding, the lighting, and so forth. So I have responded to his letter, and I haven't heard anything since then, but I did respond to it.
Kathy, have you reviewed the resubmission?
Yeah, and all our comments have been met, as Gil had said, as far as drainage and erosion control and so forth. The one outstanding thing had to do with Health Department, and that they do have to go to board review because of the additional capacity that they need. The lighting, the concern that Mrs. Wyman had to do with the motion sensors and then they going on by accident and being tripped by an animal or something like that. But this is a very low level light. This is not, this is not like a spotlight or anything like that, and it's cast down. And the photometrics didn't extend very far into where definitely not across the property line. So I don't think that there would be any impact from that. And it's really not that kind of light. You don't want to have to get out of the car and switch it on. You want it to be a motion sensor and not used otherwise. So I believe everything's been addressed.
Okay, well, to me, in view of the fact that the applicant has made every effort to address the concerns and that the people who have the concerns have not come to the meeting, I think we can close the public hearing. If anybody would agree with me, could they make a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
The third item on the public hearing is Eminent East Corporation, 276 North Main Street.
And for the applicant, Gilbert G. Flanagan, 21 South Main Street, Southampton, I have an affidavit of posting and an affidavit of mailing that I'll submit up.
Just do that the next thing.
This may be a little bit briefer presentation than the one I just made. This is a public hearing on a proposed three-lot subdivision of this property located on the east side of North Main Street. It's the exact same application that you reviewed and granted sketch plan approval to back in December of 2012. Since then, the property has changed hands. It was previously in a trust. The trust sold the property, and the new owners wish to do the exact same subdivision without any changes. As you know from the map, we're proposing 3 lots, each of which containing at least 40,000 square feet in an R12.5 zone. So therefore, all of these lots are very oversized. In fact, we could probably get at least one other lot as a matter of right without any variances, but we're not seeking that. It's also important to note that because all of these lots are at least 40,000 square feet, they totally comply with the health department's requirements, so we won't need any relief from them, any transfer of flow rights or anything of that nature. You may also remember that back in December of 2012, you did SEQA review, and this very same subdivision received a negative declaration, of which I gave you a copy when I made the application for sketch plan approval. So I don't think there's too much else I need to say about this. As I say, it's the exact same map that you saw before. There were no objections from the public at that time. One thing I did ask the client, since you had raised it, there was some debris apparently that was located on the property. I've just been informed that most of that has been removed and the balance of it is to be removed. Apparently, one of the purposes of it was to provide a temporary access so that they could landscape out this property from the adjacent commercial use. So that's really all I have to say, unless you have any questions of me on this one.
It looks like driveways are being put in there now.
They were going to putting it, as I say, from what I'm told, and one of the people is here who can address it, the purpose was to provide an access so that they could install landscaping to buffer the property from the, the South Fork asphalt Petro use that's nearby. So they're not, in other words, they're not putting in driveways anticipating the subdivision, if that's your question.
Well, it looks like there's piles of stone or blend or something there. And when I drove past today, there was somebody actively working, moving it.
That's right. In fact, I could, if someone from the applicant is here, I could have them confirm that, but that is the case. It is being removed, and probably within the next day or so, it'll all be removed.
Well, it looks like it was delivered there.
Maybe you might be able to address that. Identify yourself.
Michael White. Yeah, we did have some of it delivered there, but we trucked it to somewhere else. Most of it is gone now. So we wanted to make an access road because it's a farm lot, because we want to screen out the oil tanks. So, because that's been a complaint on the block from different people. And they wanted us to rip the grass up because they said we were attracting ticks and deer over there, so we did that. And now we're going to try to screen out the oil tanks. And we had to make a road to get back there. And other than that, that's what it's for. And we moved, 90% of it today.
You moved it off-site?
Yeah. Well, there's a little bit left on site still, but most of it we trucked off site.
It looks like it was delivered there, though. So it was delivered there, and then you moved it off-site?
We delivered it there. We spread some of it to make a road. We had too much of it, and we trucked it off site today. Most of it is gone now. Because the tanks are it's the worst part of the property. So
Yep.
we have 18-foot trees we're going to put on the berm that's there and try to screen it.
We're just sensitive to the approval process. I mean, you're here before the board and you taking it for what you say to be accurate, but as the board, we're concerned that work begins before the actual approvals are issued is obviously not something we want to see happen.
Right. I understand that. I didn't know that you couldn't plant trees there. I mean, I thought I was, doing the right thing, because that's been a complaint for years about seeing the tanks from North Main Street. So I figured it's the fall that we would put the trees in and screen the tanks. We're not digging foundations or anything, or, we're just trying to, make the property look better.
Steve, you comfortable with that explanation?
I was not here when the vote was cast for the original sketch plan approval, so did we have a landscaping plan, a preliminary landscaping plan that we approved?
It was just a sketch plan at that time, so, and this is sketch plan as well. So they didn't get into that level of detail. I know that issue came up, though. There was concern about the oil tanks and wanting to screen them, and so sounds like a good approach, but I don't know about, it did seem like there was a lot of clearing on the property, but it was all lawn, so it was just all dirt when I went by there today with the pile of dirt, so.
Because even though I wasn't there for the vote, I do remember we talked about specific locations of driveways and lining up with streets and drainage in the road and all that. I remember the conversations. I just unfortunately wasn't here for the sketch plan approval, but as long as there's no driveways going in that are going to contradict what we had, then, and they're just going to put trees in, and, excuse me, and not build driveways, and then I'm okay with it.
Yeah, there's no curb cuts. We're not going to do that yet.
By the way, the resolution of approval that you gave in 2012 mentioned that the final approval would be subject to drainage and access and things of that nature, so that's something we'd face at final the way we normally do.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody here this evening wish to comment on this application? No. Would the board be ready to close the public hearing and make a motion to that effect?
So moved. I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Bo, my assumption is that with regards to Beach Plum, you have not had full opportunity.
That's correct, right. I spoke with Patrick. I've made some preliminary comments to him. We are going to jointly make some revisions to his initial report. We should have that available for the work session at the end of the month.
So I see a number of people here regarding Beach Plum. I'd like to just bump that up. The decision has not been written yet. I was hoping to have the vote on it this evening, but it's not been written yet, so that won't take place until the following meeting, so
November 2nd.
November 2nd. So I'd like to,
I'll make a motion to adjourn for all purposes.
there is some issues regarding this application that Mr. Flanagan brought out. There was a letter written in the file regarding the status of Guilfoyle Street. And probably appropriate to discuss that at this point before we adjourn that matter.
What are we discussing? The barn?
No, there was.
Yeah, the question
no,
is,
the,
this says, we'll wait and
the
get
Beach
to it
Plum
later.
Meadows. There was,
What is good is we'll get to it satisfactorily.
there was this letter from Cal.
We get these things written down and follow-up is near zero. So I don't know what to do.
Correct.
Because if you
Wait,
look at the
Beach
map,
Plum
it's
Meadows?
not trivial.
We
It's a
moved it up
major
because there's no
street.
decision.
It's, you know,
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I might remind you that the public hearing on this was closed on August 3rd, so I would, you have a letter from me indicating that that shouldn't be taken as part of the record on that public hearing, and that would not be appropriate. And I will point out, as we've said throughout this matter, that the issue of Guilfoyle Street would be something that would be resolved in the context of final approval, so that we can definitely deal with it then.
My question is, Gil, I think I understand what you're saying, and it's a question of timing and everything. How does one deal with this issue, quote, on final approval for the plot? Does that mean we go and start over? I mean, do we hold it up forever? Do we get letters from every? what is the process for a private, so-called private street that is being used in 2 or 3 different ways, which the record shows the ZBA has approved a couple of times, different people?
Alan,
And
let me.
what do we
address
do?
that.
How do we resolve
It's
that?
this is a progressive process.
Yeah, I got that.
You reserved your rights to deal with the street.
Yeah,
It needs to be dealt with to the satisfaction of the board. I think Gil has previously stated that the
Yeah,
title
okay.
company is
So
working
it
on
co- it-
researching this. The
so it
package
comes
is
back-
incomplete.
it comes back to the board later then.
No, it doesn't come back because it hasn't gone away.
Okay,
So, it's still there.
Back to board
and It'll
discussion.
have to be resolved.
Okay.
But it doesn't affect the overall
Okay.
concept of the subdivision, which is what you're dealing with at this time.
And you do get another crack at it. We have to come back for final approval as soon as you grant preliminaries.
The
You get another
amenities
crack.
question,
okay, I'm asking a process question. I know I'm sure
Guilfoyle.
you and the people involved in Hope Aggregators will get it resolved one way or the other eventually. I just was wondering how it occurs. That's my question.
Amenities question.
We're working on it.
And by the
We'll
way,
have to
Alan,
satisfy you.
by the way, I don't think the board has ever, at least in my tenure, ever had an issue like this before
That
with
could
the
be.
subdivision. So it's unique in that sense.
That's why I asked the process question.
Well, there's no process to something that's that unique. That's part of the reasoning, but again, it's a progressive process, and eventually this will be dealt with. But again, it's not a situation on the sketch plan stage that it needs to be specifically resolved.
Okay.
May I ask a question? Mr. Stevens, may I ask a question regarding that matter? So that we may. Sure. Donna DeLeo, I reside in the village of Southampton. May we then know what the process would be, given that there are some intangibles, you're saying you haven't come up against this? And if you haven't come up against this before, and this was recognized, and that is apparently important to the overall plan, why was it closed to the public, knowing that?
The sketch plan was closed to the public. I've just said to Alan that the issue is unresolved about Guilford Street, and that doesn't need to be specifically addressed at the sketch plan process. It'll be addressed at the preliminary and/or the final process.
And so as we go along, we will be gathering more information, and this will be presented to you.
Exactly. The applicant has yet to make a full report. There has yet to be any title work submitted. So this is just, it's an unresolved issue that will be resolved.
And you did say that you've not come up against this before.
No,
So if that's the case, then how do you know that you can close to the public
we're
before you
closing the
move forward?
sketch plan.
I know that, but if you've never come up against this before, what,
Because we've
what
made,
is the
because
pro-
we've
you have-
made
you're
a
saying there's no
logical,
process.
we've made a logical reasoned determination that we can close the matter and deal with the sketch plan now and deal with this in the future.
Okay, all right, duly noted.
Does this,
Well, and it,
do,
And as far as-
the, I'm a little questioning there was a memorandum submitted, is this the one that on Old Town?
No.
This dates back
No.
to a sequel review
No,
about 8 years
it's not,
ago.
it's not.
And this is not a subject
It's not.
of amenities on this particular
No.
plan?
There was
It's
something.
not.
No,
It's
there was-
not.
No,
It's
There
not.
w- Wait, he's asking me. There was something submitted regarding this development, and it was in conjunction with, the secra for Old Town was attached, and it was used as a model within which to cross-reference amenities as well as other things, and environmental as well. So you are correct in referencing that. That was submitted. However, it was not discussed, I think, during the last work session.
Well, the references to a different development under different circumstances, which would be Old Town's background, is not applied here.
I think we may be talking about two different things. I was at the last work session, and you did reference it, but it had nothing to do with the matter at hand tonight.
Okay.
thank you. I just wanted to bring that up to clear that up. I don't know if anything has been cleared up. I mean, the public hearing was closed, and the sketch plan was closed, and we are awaiting the decision on the sketch plan. And then once that has been rendered, we would move to the next stage where those issues will be finally resolved. So, with that said, I would ask the applicant to request an adjournment to the following meeting to vote on the decision. Mr. Flanagan?
But what I would request, given the fact that this is going on for a while, what I would request is that this be put off till the next work session. I think that would be suitable, but I would really like to have a decision on the work session. I think I've explained some personal situations with respect to this application, including the health of Mrs. Corrigan and a few other things, and I would therefore strongly urge you to have your extension limited to the next work session. And as you know, since it's a public meeting, you can act at that time.
Gil, I understand. I would like to get it done everybody as soon as possible. I have no interest in delay as such. On a larger, I think this is the creation of a, as I see it from 30,000 feet on a helicopter here, it's an extension of sort of a half-acre zoning over into something that Choice might have made something else. And it's coming over from east to west, and there's a boundary that has issues of title, site, zoning board will have to deal with it, I'm sure. You'll handle it very well as counsel for the people. And it seems to me it's not a trivial exercise as to how it stops and starts and what those people will do. I did everything I could to, by personal research, to go to the building department and see about this unbelievable road that has 2 or 3 uses and all that sort of stuff. It'd be nice to have it not even be an issue. But this is a neighborhood moving in that way, which is probably a fine outcome for land use for this and but if you're extending it to a neighborhood, you know, I've gone to see you about it and asked the people about, you know, how you're going to use the streets and to get there and so forth. They have choices. They can do what they want. If I have property, I do what I want with it that fits all the external requirements. But that's why it'd be nice to resolve the next planning thing. But it's just been lurking and lurking and lurking. But I think that the resolution is not trivial. And I'm sorry about the Corrigan and everything else, but I just think it's sadly more than just dealing with a road because of the history of not following the ZBA decisions that we could find by some of those other, unrelated to this, other neighboring property owners. If we're going to extend this neighborhood in the village, doing it right is probably a good idea. I don't think we can avoid that duty.
We've always said that we have to answer it. I think.
No, I know. So the sooner the better.
As a practical matter, I think the time to have it resolved is at the time of final approval, and obviously without that, you can't give final approval. So we're happy to address it.
Well, I'm just saying sooner the better because
But I don't want the
big
decision,
deal.
I don't want the present decision held up for that because it's not necessary. And as Mr. Robinson has said, that would not affect the design of the subdivision. So I'm pretty firm on that.
Well,
And that's,
okay.
by the way, this is a
take your word for
discussion.
it.
We've had, the public hearing was closed, and I'd like to leave it that way. I mean, that it was
understand.
closed. We have to address your concerns. We have to meet the standards in the code, but I think it's time to move on, and that's my
We're doing our
request.
very best to move on.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
So the
I have a
amenities
motion
are
to
closed.
adjourn this application at the request
I
of
move
the-
that it be adjourned to the public session,
at the request of the applicant.
Halloween
For the
evening.
record, I did not agree to the public session. I did agree to the work session.
I mean, I meant when is the work session?
The work session is October 26th.
6th, okay.
Second.
I can make that.
Aye.
All in
Aye.
favor? Aye. Moving into the site plan review for the Village of Southampton proposed ambulance barn at 151 Windmill Lane.
Richard Stott, architect, 13 Main Street, Southampton. I also have with me here the Southampton Village Volunteer Ambulance Chief, Rick Fowler, and Tim Rumpf from ARS Design, the landscape architect. I want to start with a little bit of history. This project has been in the kicking around design stage for about 6 years now. We started in 2009 when the village ambulance barn asked that we take a look at that building and see if we can make improvements to it to fit their needs. That done, realized that we couldn't meet their needs there for a reasonable cost, so we started looking at other locations. The first area we looked at was to the west of the existing police station, this area here, and I pulled up this drawing because it kind of shows everything at once. This drawing was presented as an alternative to this location, to the west. Actually, Mayor Epley suggested that we stop thinking about this area and look at the area directly north of the police station to provide this building. So we did that, and it looked good. Looked like we could make everything happen there. You'll see in this drawing the entrance to the ambulance bays would have been in a similar fashion to the way the police cars enter the detention bays at the police station. In other words, the lower section, the lower topography would house the ambulance bays. The second floor of the building would take care of their training rooms and all the support rooms that they need for this building. There were a lot of good things about this plan and some things that didn't work so well. As we got farther along, the ambulance squad, their equipment changes and their vehicles get larger. It turned out that their ceiling heights and the door heights that they needed mandated that we lift the floor-to-floor height to a point where it didn't make sense anymore. We couldn't really get down to the turnaround area that's towards Windmill Lane, and the main floor of the building would be pushed up to a point where accessibility and use would become a problem. So we had to redesign the building, and I have some drawings of this, the existing, or that earlier 2010, and by then it was 2012. The 2012 version of the design had an upper main level and then a lower level with 4 ambulance bays and some bunk rooms. I'm just showing you that for some history. Oops. This is, I have another site plan that I'll get to. It skipped over it for some reason. And let me scroll down to it, see if I can get there. This is a smaller scale version of it, but you see now that the ambulance bays are on the west side of the building, so that ambulances will drive up this hill instead of down a very steep hill to the turnaround area. Felt that it worked much better for the ambulances. The ambulance bays are now out of sight around the west side, and the building is more efficient because I can layer the 2 stories of the support spaces and keep the ambulance bays as a separate single-story area. This is the floor plan. See if I can clear this up a little bit. Go away. There we go. Sorry about that. This is the. Yeah, that's about as good as I can get it. I don't know if there's. This is the village's machine, not mine.
Can't tell if it's in focus or not.
All right.
Ricky's got to be the judge here.
There you go.
So in this latest version, there's 5 ambulance bays on the west side of the building, and they're covered by a flat roof that affords some other opportunities that I'll point out in a few minutes. The rest of the space on the main level are office spaces and support spaces for the ambulances themselves. On the lower level is a training room, and a training room meaning professional instruction room, not a workout room. There is a small workout room down there. There's bathrooms and a kitchen that'll support the entire building. In this plan, we're proposing an attic that will either provide storage space now or in the future. And show you a roof plan. I have a little video of this building. We studied shades and shadows on the building. The roof on the upper left is above the ambulance bays, so there's lots of opportunities for solar equipment up there, photovoltaics and hot water that won't even be seen from the ground. Clearly the building's built into the hillside, takes advantage of the hill that way. The tower is both a light tower and a stair tower, so daylight will be allowed into the top of that thing through translucent windows, and that light will bounce around and end up down in the back of the lower level, so we'll have even daylight in the lower level in the hallway. The materials will be similar to the police station. The roof is different. Will be a slate roof, a composite slate that looks exactly like the real thing, but it's not. It's more environmentally friendly and much less expensive. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I don't have anything now.
Forgive me if this is a dumb question, probably is, but every time somebody calls an ambulance, does the ambulance come screaming out of here with all of its sirens on, or is that just where they sort of go to spend the night?
I'll let Rick address that, but before I say that,
Rick can say it.
I'll let Rick Fowler address that. How's that?
What's the question?
Well, is this where the ambulances come out of every time they get called, or is this more or less just where they're stationed at the end of the day, and during the day they're at the hospital, they're in motion and not always coming back to this home port before they start out again?
No, this is the actual ambulance station. Whenever there's a call, the members respond to this location, get
So
the
it
ambulances
kind of,
and leave.
it's like a fire station, or whatever. When
Yeah,
something
exactly.
happens.
The ambulances, even how it is now, are stationed at the ambulance headquarters. They're not out on the street or at the hospital.
Okay.
Ricky, how many calls a day do you usually get?
It varies per day, but it's usually about 2 or 3 a day. But some days we go with
Could be more.
no calls for a
Less.
few days.
Right.
Some days it's 1. So it really fluctuates. I mean, in the summertime, it's a lot more busy than the winter time.
Thanks.
One of the problems the ambulance squad has had in their present location is that when they do have to leave there in an emergency with lights and sirens on, their route of exit is out Job's Lane to Main Street. That's the most common route that they take. So often, and I've witnessed it from my own office window, they get stuck on Main Street behind somebody waiting to park their car, and Main Street and Job's Lane is a big issue for the ambulance squad. So moving it up to Windmill Lane near the police station is a big improvement in terms of their ability to get out of there, and is more in keeping with the master plan that the village has recently conducted. There was a, you want to talk about your site a little bit?
So this building's used quite frequently by our members. Right now we're up to about 65 members, volunteers. These members stay on call on nighttime. They sleep there when they're on duty. In addition to the ambulance calls, we have extensive training that we do to keep up our skills. And we also do a variety of community programs. We do a monthly CPR class for the community where anyone can come in and learn CPR. So we have quite a few different things going on with this building. And now that once we get more space, we want to continue to do more community programs and use this as like a public space. One thing that we're really looking forward to doing is an EMT class here in the village. Right now, most of them are further west of here. And our members have to travel, so that's not really appealing to members that have to now. When our members go to take an EMT class now, they have to travel. So they get done with work at the end of the day. Now they have to either leave work early to get to the class on time. So we feel if we can host a class in our village, we can get more of an interest and maybe even get some more volunteers out of it.
Approximately how much larger is the new building than the place you are now?
It's about 3 times the size.
So it's a big,
Yeah, we're bulging at the seams where we are now. Currently, we cannot meet at our location. Our meeting room has become way too small. We couldn't fit everyone in there, so right now we're meeting off-site at one of the firehouses. Additionally, when we conducting training, same thing. We don't have room to train there. Office space is very limited. We have to keep all our records. Every patient that we transport to the hospital, we have to keep their records for a minimum of 7 years. So that's a lot of paperwork that we have to keep in fireproof storage. And not to mention all of our supplies, we have to keep overstock. That way, if we run through for a bad call, we have something to restock from. So as technology increases, the amount of equipment that we need to keep on hand also changes. So that's why we need more and more storage as we progress. And when we started this project back in 2009, I would say probably we had 25 members. Now we're up to 65 members. The more volunteers, the better. And that's why we're having the 4-minute response time that we have. We're very fortunate to, whenever someone calls 911, we have someone there, an emergency provider there, within 4 minutes, which is quite remarkable, one of the best in the county.
Great.
Ricky, how big's your radius?
Well,
You're not the only ambulance in the South Fork, I know, so where do you run into whom, where?
So our main territory is the Incorporated Village of Southampton.
Got that.
But we also have mutual aid agreements with the neighboring districts. That's if any other agency calls for our backup, we send them there. So our primary radius is the Village of Southampton, but we also go to the town of Southampton, North Sea, Tuckahoe, Shinnecock Hills. We also go to Bridgehampton and Hampton Bays. Those are usually the districts that we help cover. When they have all their ambulances out or they can't answer a call, they'll call us and to come help them. But we can go all over the county. It just depends.
But I assume it's sort of like the fire, my question was, I don't know what's out there. I think there's an ambulance somewhere toward Hampton Bays. I think, is there one in North Sea? Is there
There's
one
an
in
ambulance
Watermill?
station.
Where is, how do you? what-
There's an ambulance station
Where are the
in
other
North
guys?
Sea,
Okay,
and there's one in Bridgehampton and one in
Bridgehampton.
Hampton Bays.
okay,
But there's not one in Shinnecock Hills,
right,
or
That-
Tuckahoe.
got it.
That's all covered by the Southampton Volunteer Ambulance.
Well, what,
By the Southampton Volunteer Ambulance, they're out of North Sea.
that's North Sea that way, okay.
Right, so they cover that area. So our primary area that we operate on is the Village of Southampton. But we do get called quite frequently to go assist these other departments. Sometimes they have staffing issues where they can't get out, so we have to go answer the call. Or sometimes they're just tied up on too many calls and they don't have enough equipment. So fortunately, we're going on, I think, 4 years straight where we haven't had a call go unanswered. We've been able to answer every single one of our calls. The only time we're calling in our neighbors is when we're out of ambulances. So it's pretty impressive.
You got a beach vehicle, how many ambulances do you have now?
We have 3 ambulances,
Okay,
and then 1 Polaris ATV for
Yeah.
the beach.
I call it the beach vehicle, I've
Yeah.
seen that one, because you got 3 now.
Yep, we have 3 ambulances.
And this is for 7, so this is planning
have
ahead,
5
this is
bays.
seriously planning ahead.
No, well,
Well, there are 5 bays and
there's
two
5 bays. We have
2 are
3.
deeper, at least
Correct.
in terms of the architect's three architects' reviews I've seen, it's a 7-ambulance facility
7 ambulances
capacity.
will not fit in there.
Oh,
There's the 3 ambulance bays, which are the depth of the ambulance, and then there's the 2 double bays.
Yep.
Those can fit 2 Tahoe-sized vehicles. That's what our first responders are, but not 2 ambulances.
Of the big ones, yeah.
Correct. So the theory is here, we also have 3 chief's vehicles and 1 paramedic vehicle. So the 3 ambulances and the paramedic vehicle and the beach vehicle will all share a bay, so that will be 4 bays. Then there'll be 1 open bay, which can be a wash bay to pull in, or any of the chief's vehicles to pull in now. So essentially, there's only 1 open bay.
Okay. I was looking at plans.
Yep.
Did we get a preliminary landscape design on this? I just can't find mine.
A big map. Is there any thought to not having a light tower and making this 100% solar if you're going to do it? At least doing the south side all solar?
An important part of the building. Daylighting is an important part of the building, not just solar gain from photovoltaics, but the building has the capacity for somewhere between 20 and 25,000 kilowatts of solar equipment up there, plus enough for domestic hot water system on the flat roof of the ambulance building, ambulance bays.
I'm asking a terrible, uninformed design question. I'm sure you've addressed a lot of issues, but I'm just looking at it in terms of these other agendas that go to the public so enthusiastically at Ricky's leadership, bonding this and putting up a huge sum of money per member to get all these facilities. It's a lot of people in the village are for it. It's an exemplary service. I know people who've been rescued by it. I know people that pay for it every year happily in the hopes they get rescued by it. So that's not my problem. I'm just looking at what's the best design to fit the shoe in the box.
Right.
And you've got a lot of options. There are people still yelling at me about the police station. It's never free from doubt. But it looks like how it is there. I understand. I'm glad it's down the hill because I was told that Upper Hill may end up being our sewage station. So you're making use of diminishing land, so that's fine. That street's a tough street. When the post office moved up the road, the traffic jam to that light is for several times a day and certainly for several months a year, to my knowledge, one that you don't go on because you won't get to the post office without 3 red lights. So if there's an ambulance got to come, Ricky's going to be busy. He's going to be riding on the sidewalks.
Well, the traffic problems on that road aren't going to go away no matter where the
No,
ambulance.
anywhere in the village. No, they're all over. They might be faster than Job's Lane because they go faster, or than Main Street because they don't back up. But we're going to have to live with it.
I think it's a good spot. I think you can get
Not
down
many
to
others.
Hill Street, you can get up Windmill easily there.
Not easily.
I think easily, more easily than going through Main Street and Job's Lane, for
That's
sure.
our biggest problem right now is
Yeah.
going through the business
No,
district.
it's-
Every time
Going
there's a
through
call,
Main Street's tough, I
Yeah.
agree.
not only do we have the ambulances with lights and sirens, but we have our volunteers, and they only have a little flashing green light in their window, which is a courtesy light. People generally don't pull over. We have pedestrians walking out in front of them. It's a safety hazard.
I agree, maybe the best of bad choices. I understand that. It's got to be somewhere.
Well, I know a lot of thought has gone into this location. We considered many other options, and this seemed to be the best that we could think of. It keeps it out of the business district, and hopefully we can avoid it at all costs.
Further out, but I know there are others because I've heard a lot of people talk about them. So if that's your best choice, a lot of people have worked on it, but it's.
It wasn't so long ago that the fire engines were moving
Yep.
in and out of there with much more regularity. Now that we've moved some of that work elsewhere, it's not quite as crazy there. But just watching from out my window of the store when the ambulances go down Job's Lane, and I know you guys are in a hurry because you've got to get someplace because somebody's dying, but it's dangerous. I mean, there's people just walking across the street and they don't pay attention. So I agree with getting it out of there. I don't have anything else, gentlemen.
I think it looks good.
So we move to,
Public hearing? Make a motion to adjourn the Village of Southampton, 151 Windmill Lane, for a public hearing on November 2nd. Second.
do I have a second?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we got Halsey Holdings Tennis Court is adjourned, pending ZBA. And we have 70 Pheasant Close East,
November 2nd.
which we will have a decision on November 2nd.
Make a motion to adjourn for all purposes at the request of the applicant, the 70 Pheasant Close East, to the November 2nd public meeting.
Seconded.
Yes, sir.
No, I think we were just waiting for Bo's written decision. We don't have a written decision to vote on. Do we vote on that one?
Right.
Seconded?
Do we have a
Yeah,
second?
seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
OIA Associates,
Hi, Bailey Larkin, Bennett and Reed, offices at 212 Windmill Lane in Southampton. We had been adjourning this matter to take care of a parks fee issue, and the trustees adopted a resolution, and I actually have a copy of it to submit. We also made copies of the most recent plan that was approved by the health department, because this has kind of been lingering for a while. So I made copies for everyone of the most recent plan for review. And also a copy of a draft declaration of covenants and restrictions for approval. So,
kind of lingering a while is a mild understatement.
You have a way with words.
Larkin? I had blonde hair when we started this one.
so that plan's been approved, and it's actually just recently renewed for another year, the one that I submitted. But if there's any comments on it, just let us know, and that's it.
So, Bo, we adjourn this one for decision. Make a motion at the request of the applicant to adjourn for decision the OIA Associates 212 Windmill Lane.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There's a letter in the file from the applicant of 550 and 554 Hill Street requesting an adjournment until the work session on October 27th.
Make a motion at the request of the
October
applicant.
26th, sorry.
Request of the applicant to adjourn for all purposes the 550, 554 Hill Street to the October 26th work
To
session.
1026?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do I have a second?
Those are the plans, right? The newest plans.
We haven't done the new plans yet.
The newest plans will come on the 26th, Gil?
Or
Right, you
before.
may remember that you requested us to provide additional.
yeah.
We're meeting with the surveyor on Thursday to
Oh,
do
no,
that.
no, that's what I meant. Thank you.
We got the new plans.
No, no,
Not yet.
we just
yet,
got
last
it.
time.
Yeah.
That was just the lot, no plan.
The drawing, oh,
Yeah.
now.
Now we're gonna
The
get the
difference
plans.
between the drawing and the plan?
Yes, one looks like that.
Oh.
Did we have a second? Have a second.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
So what are we waiting for?
Now we're working for a new site plan.
Oh, good.
We had a survey that had,
New
we had
site.
a survey that had 3 lines.
Further site plan review, the Chabad of Southampton, we are waiting for the information. Anything, Bo, from them?
Yeah, I was able to track down Jeff Bragman when he had left the meeting last time, and he was apparently unaware, although I had sent him a letter in August saying that, they needed to come back and get approval for the gates that are already built. He said he would, I said you needed to do that, and he said he would take care of it, but apparently the board has received no communication as of this time yet, so we'll give it another month and write him a letter and express the fact that he needs to submit an application to the board for approval of the gates.
Okay, I'll make a motion at the request of the applicant to adjourn for all purposes the Chabad of Southampton to the October 26th work session.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Peconic Land Trust, 296 Hampton Road.
The public hearing on this matter was closed, but you and the staff had asked for some additional information, particularly the fire department did, and we're working on that, was still trying to refine the
Radius,
access.
Yep.
But we should hopefully have that before the work session.
We adjourn to the 26th. I move that we adjourn it to get the fire department work on the radius till the 26th of October.
No, you're approving the request of the applicant
Yeah,
to adjourn.
I move that.
Seconded.
Did we go to the health department on that one?
Yeah.
Well, hold on.
On the Peconic Land Trust?
We're talking about,
Peconic Land Trust.
you're talking about the Peconic Land
Yeah.
Trust?
Yeah, we're just waiting for the
We're waiting for
applicant-
information from the fire
applicant wants to
marshal.
adjourn till he can get the fire
How about-
radius
How
done.
about from the health department concerning the pools, the depths of the pools?
Did we get that?
separate?
No, they haven't made an application, I don't know if they've made an application yet, but they haven't gotten an approval yet. They are well within the flow limit, though, that is allowable for the site, so I don't expect that they'll have any issue at all.
There's
We
no,
can't
lot-
make an application until we get a secret determination from this board also. The health department won't deem it complete.
We could probably do that at the next meeting, regardless of.
That
the
would be
fire.
great.
Yep.
I thought our attorney asked for them to go to the, is this the one with the health, going to the health?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I had a motion to adjourn. I had a
Seconded.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
What about tele-
Aye.
Oh, that?
Capital Telecom Acquisitions.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Janine Brino, Ray Nielsen, Huber, and Coughlin, with offices at 36 North New York Avenue in Huntington. We are requesting that the public hearing be scheduled for the next available date, which I understand is November 2nd. We have been communicating with the consultant retained by the village, Mr. Comey, and we're going to have a call tomorrow to flesh out some issues, but he's on board with scheduling the matter for the 2nd.
That's correct.
And you're okay with everything else? We can go to
Yeah.
public hearing?
Yep. The outstanding issues were items that need to be taken care of before building permit, but it actually seems that some of those haven't been resolved and that he did not receive some of the information that was submitted after. Because it was sent by email, and I think maybe he just got overwhelmed by all the emails.
It's a lot of
Like
information.
5 emails, so this is, and the other thing that I wanted to mention is that I've asked Mr. Comey or his associate to join us at the public hearing on November 2nd, so that way he can answer any questions that the public has at that
Good.
time. And he can talk a little
Good.
bit about the process.
I'll move the applicant's motion for the 2nd.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you
Thank
very much. Have a
And
good
please
evening.
get it done.
Yeah. Trying. Thank you.
That concludes the agenda for this evening.
Because when the guy was here, he said it was.
If we have read minutes, let's try and get some of those approved.
I can do the August 3rd and August 31st.
August 3rd and August 31st. Have the
I haven't read
people
them,
read
too.
those? I think you've read them. I've seen your comments on
I
them.
edited when I was happy with my edits. Once somebody
I was.
bitched about it, I'm ready. I cleaned it up a
I'll
little.
make a motion to approve the minutes of August 3rd and August 31st, 2015.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So the next meeting will be a work session on October 26th at 5 PM. With that, may I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, may I just ask one more question? I'll be brief. This is about process.
This is yours.
That's mine.
Just so that I have an understanding, because I have FOIL information coming to me, which is very interesting and not yet been presented, and I think would be important to the process that you're trying to get going. When I get it, do I have a choice of, am I able to speak at the next work session? My understanding, after speaking with someone in the village of the trustee side was yes. However, if that is not the case, then I can take my information and present it in an alternative manner. Of course, that would be probably a letter to the newspaper or a letter to yourselves. I would like to be able to share it in a public forum so that everybody could hear it and digest it. The board, as well as neighbors and the builder and the owner of the property.
Well, my thought would be that since the public hearing is closed, there's nothing that you can really say that can impact the decision as it's going to be written. But as Mr. Robinson indicated, it's not the final decision on this whole application. So you certainly will have opportunity in the future to present any further information you have when we are debating the final approval of the subdivision. If you want to provide the information that you have uncovered prior to that time, I'm not sure that the work session really is the proper venue for it, because it doesn't go anywhere besides the people that will be sitting in this room, and the work session is really the opportunity for us to discuss our concerns without really a lot of input from the audience.
But you would have then this information as soon as possible, which I feel is important. Otherwise, I can certainly wait until the next planning board meeting, which is not a work session. Of course, I think because
Can I ask what the nature of the information is? Is it something that the board should be aware of in the sketch plan stage of this? Or is it something that is a larger concept that it would ultimately have relevance to the overall subdivision?
I think it would have relevance to the overall village of Southampton, the subdivision and then the village of Southampton. But however, I only have verbalized information. I had to submit a FOIL for more accurate and complete information. And as you know, that's time consuming, so I don't have it here. I don't want to speak further until I have the information in my hand, because I don't want to give you inaccurate information.
Well, the work, as Roy said, the work sessions are basically designed for the working and processing of files, and the board discourages public comment, although from time to time, an attorney will be present or somebody with specific information. But it basically is that. It's a non-publicized work session. I mean, I don't know, again, what information you got that has, whether it's time sensitive or what, but if it's time sensitive to this application, is it time sensitive to Beach Plum or something bigger than that?
It's time sensitive to Beach Plum, I would imagine, but only time sensitive in respect to how the process goes. I'm unaware of all aspects of the process, so I don't,
It's hard to respond to something as vague as that. So.
Well, I'm not looking for a response. I'm just making a statement.
You asked a question, right? What was the procedure? And it's hard to give you a response to what procedure is with something that vague. I'm just saying that the work sessions are basically designed for the working of the board to do their work. They're not a public forum, and there's no camera. So if you feel that all that is a benefit to you, then I would suggest you would address the board at the November 2nd meeting. Or before then, you can write a letter at any time.
Okay, well then that's the answer. Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Make a motion to close the meeting?
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.